Here I am with another installment of It Was Dusk, picking up from where we left off yesterday. The next night, Sarah was outside, just like the night before. She initiated the conversation. "So, what did your aunt have to say?" I imagine she did have something to say. "Pish posh," Oliver replied. "What?" said Sarah. "Are you saying that to me, or is that what she said to you?" Oliver laughed very loudly. "Well, first of all, I don't say pish-posh myself, but she sure does." Sarah laughed too. "You mean you just walked in?" asked Sarah. "And she said that?" "Well, no, not exactly. I walked in," Oliver said, biting his lip and slowing down. Then he scratched his head and considered things. Sarah interrupted. "I'm sorry, you don't have to tell me. It's really none of my business. I shouldn't have asked." "No," said Oliver. "What I think of you and said to my aunt is your business. I said I thought you were a delightful person, and it's too bad she hasn't gotten to know you." Sarah's reply was just, "Really, that's what I said, and it's true." "Thank you," said Sarah. There was silence for several minutes. Both of them felt a little awkward. Then, irrepressible Sarah asked, "Do you know much about the neighbors?" "No, not really," answered Oliver. "I mean, my aunt has told me this and that, but I try not to listen too hard." "Well," said Sarah, "here's a true story for you." Oliver, having been pleased with her storytelling before, looked forward to this one. "Fire away," he said. "Mr. Kirshner, you've heard the name. Aunt Mattie tells me they're a founding family. Came over on the southern equivalent of the Mayflower or something." "Yep, that's them," Sarah agreed. "And," Sarah continued, "you know the cemetery at the crossroads?" Oliver nodded, wondering what would come next. "Well, one night about 6 months ago, Junior Kirshner was driving home from a party. You know Junior, about 5 feet tall by 5 feet wide. I've seen him, and I think you have an accurate eye for measurements," said Oliver. "Well," Sarah took a big breath. "Junior was a bit more than tipsy that night, and I'm sure you've noticed that most of these small church cemeteries don't have fences." Oliver nodded. Sarah smiled. Go on," said Oliver. "Junior ran off the road and right through that cemetery. Took down 4 gravestones. He managed to get home, but he left his front bumper amongst the debris. It didn't take a genius of a deputy to find who done it the next morning." Oliver wasn't sure if he should laugh or not, so he asked, "Did he fess up to it?" "Well, of course. Here was his Mazda sports car with a front bumper missing and a cemetery with 4 knocked over gravestones and a bumper. Grass all torn up, tire treads, mud all the way up the road, almost to the turnoff to his house. He couldn't deny it. But what really got him in trouble is when his uncle heard about it. You know, Kirshner's Insurance?" "Oh, no," said Oliver. "Not the big insurance agency in town." "The very one," chuckled Sarah. "I happened to be in there the day his uncle talked to him. They insure my car and property." "What did he say?" "That man, the spitting image of Junior, except about a foot bigger in every direction, he turned beet red in the face and neck. He did close the door, but before he realized I was there, I heard him ranting about property damage, blankety blank cemetery. Are you blankety blank some kind of moron? That was the gist of it. I only heard about 4 or 5 sentences, but it was enough. Sarah began to laugh. She couldn't hold it back. Can you imagine, she said? There you are, the big family in town, and your son runs down a bunch of grave markers at a church cemetery, and your brother has to pay out damages to the families to replace them. If you look the next time you drive by, you'll see that 2 are still down. The families have been arguing and want a different kind of stone. Mr. Kirshner, the insurance one, refuses to do anything but replace the same kind as was there. Oh my gosh, it's got old families not speaking to one another. Sarah put her hand over her mouth. Oh, I shouldn't laugh. I mean, desecrating a graveyard. But it does have its humorous side, don't you think? Oliver busted out laughing. He had been keeping it in so long it just rang out down the road. He could hardly catch his breath, he laughed so hard. Now, Oliver, explained Sarah, that wasn't gossip. Around here it's common knowledge. That comment made Oliver laugh even more. By the time they got home that night, Oliver was huffing and puffing. Sarah had regaled him with so many funny stories about the neighbors. Just for fun, he asked his aunt about the cemetery. He made it seem like he had noticed the fallen markers and was wondering about them. "Oh, Ollie," whispered Aunt Mattie, "that was nasty business. Why, folks won't even walk on somebody's grave. And here big old Junior drives right over him like he's at the drag tracks. Terrible thing." Aunt Mattie shook her head and clucked her tongue. "Caused more trouble in this town than anything in a long time. Actually got members of the town council not speaking to one another." "Gosh," said Ollie in mock sincerity. "Gosh, you say right? What a thing to happen here." Ollie went off to bed that night, still chuckling over thoughts of Junior and his uncle trying to hash out a settlement on the damaged property. And I'll stop here for today. And I just want to remind you that this story, called It Was Dusk, is based on actual things that have happened. I hope you're enjoying it, and I'll read some more tomorrow.